You're watching Beyond Markets, where we bring you up to speed on development outcomes on the continent. I'm Kenneth Ekhomu, and thank you so much for being a part of the show today. Coming up on today's show, well, COVID-19 is taking the back seat as we're seeing Nigerians troop to the seat to protest for police reforms. So we'll find out the best and worst case scenario with a security expert. You can join the conversation. Let us know what you think. The hashtag to use is Beyond Markets. You can also hit me up on my handle. That's at Kenneth Ekhomu. But first, let's look at what is playing out here. Security expert Dr. Ona Ekhomu, who is the national president of the Association of Industrial Security and Safety Operators of Nigeria, says Nigerians should brace up for an inevitable upsurge in violent crimes as a result of the disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad by the federal government of Nigeria. He joins me now to clear his position on this and weigh in on the recent ENDSARS protests playing out in Nigeria today. Thank you so much for your time on the show, sir. And then let's look at that best case and worst case scenario. So you're saying we're going to see that uptick in violent crimes?
Yes, most certainly, Mr. Ken. The situation is that the bad guys are watching the news, just like we are watching, or like you are making the news, and they are seeing what is going on. And once there's that lacuna, once there's that gap in service, they are going to capitalize on it. Now, it is even being said in some quarters that the reason the protest is persisting is that some bad guys have joined such that they can elongate it and give room for them to carry out their operations. That, I guess, is a conspiracy theory. But the concrete fact here is that anytime you have a reduction in policing services or in security enforcement, there is inversely a spike in crime. That occurs. So, I mean, that's a proven fact. So that's what my release was based on, that we're going to see an uptick. And because of this, I mean, that's a fact. We're going to see it. And I was really calling for the police agency, for the police management to hurry up and put whatever it needs to put in place such that they can control crime, which is their constitutional duty.
All right, that's the worst case scenario, but let's look at the best case scenario, because we're seeing that these agitations, for some Nigerians, they will say they're long overdue, because we've seen quite a lot when you look at the video evidence that we have. Just by simply going to YouTube or social media channels, you see quite a number of cases of police brutality or in different ways. But looking at the best situation that could come out of this, though, in your view, talking about this engagement that we're getting with government, people agitating for their rights to be upheld and holding the police to account, to be more accountable at this time. For you, looking at the best case scenario for Nigeria as a whole, how can we benefit from this the most?
We should benefit immensely from it. What has happened is that the police form has long been overdue for reform, and it wasn't reformed. It's been promised several times. What we see is just creation of new divisions, new structural arrangements, but not with regard to effectiveness or performance of the police agency. And so that is what has really been happening here. So the police has really been regressing in terms of effective performance in the Nigerian polity. Nigeria is the third most terrorized country in the world. It's because we have poor policing. I mean, there's no two ways about it. What the military is doing right now, policing 34 states in the country, is an indictment of the capabilities of the Nigeria Police Agency. So, I mean, let's not take our eyes on the ball. All the special committees have been created, civil defense, customs enforcement, this and that. They were all created, NDLEA, EFCC. They were all created because the Central Police Agency wasn't able to produce effectively. That is why we have all of those. So those are, to me, they are all indictments, because they are chipping away at the core of policing in Nigeria. And yet we don't have adequate policing. So having said that, I think the best thing that will come out of it is that there will be better reforms, there will be great reforms. And what I want the police agency to focus on is on technological, administrative, and programmatic means of achieving.
All right, still talking about police reforms in Nigeria. Looking at first, some will say sitting at the heart of all of this is the amount that we're spending, on policing in Nigeria. Just looking at the budget here, it looks like the government is going to spend about just about 450 billion next year on police in 2021. And looking at where you sit as a security expert, looking at the amount that needs to go across the value chain in the police to get things going, do you think this amount is sufficient compared when you look at how things are playing out?
Absolutely not, sir. That's just a drop in the bucket. First of all, Nigeria is thoroughly under-policed. We should have a minimum of 1 million-man police agency, a million-man police force. We don't. We have less than 300,000. Now, even the 300,000 that is there, they are not trained, they are not equipped, they are not kitted. They don't have logistics. That's how come the state government always buy vehicles for the police agency, so on and so forth. So there are so many lacks everywhere as regard policing in Nigeria. And so I think budgeting 450 million is an existential fact, because the government realizes that it can ignore the police agency and nothing will come out of it. Well, perhaps that is another good that will come out of this protest. Because with these persistent protests, the government will now realize.
All right, well, interesting times we're looking at here, but let's address these agitations that is on the ground now. When you look at how things are playing, we're seeing young people, going to the streets, agitating for better policing, for the police to be held accountable at this time. It speaks largely to a trust deficit that is between that social contract between the police and the citizens of the country. But there's quite a lot of work that needs to be done in that regard. First, yes, you mentioned the fact that we're under police, talking about only 300,000 people, and it speaks to why the government needs to even listen more to people, because in the case of a serious uprising, they were largely under police to deal with the agitations. But looking at building that trust deficit and moving forward from here, I'd like to get your thoughts on how this step we can take this step.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ken. I think there's a lot that needs to be done here. We need to go back to the Pillian concept of policing. Sir Robert Peel, who created the Metropolitan Police Agency 1829. We need to go back to that concept and look at what were the key takeaways there. Number one, it says we must have crime statistics, that the effective policing is demonstrated by reduction in crime. Now it says, it talks about courtesy, it talks about performance, it talks about dressing and every policeman being identifiable, and so on and so forth. There were many things in that Pillian police reform. However, the key here, which is where, of course, the Nigeria Police Agency came from. Now, the key here is that we need to go back in there and put in key things into the police agency: accountability, responsibility, effectiveness, efficiency. These are concepts that are alien right now to our police agency, and they must go back in there, because that is the core of effective or responsible policing, or even, if you may, national policing. Because when we have that, and how can you achieve this? Through training and retraining and proper management and supervision, effective supervision. So these are the kinds of things that need to happen now for our police agency to, regain the trust of citizens and, bridge this trust gap that exists right now, which is creating difficulties.
All right, but when you look at the ENDSARS protests, if you just take a look back at the dailies over the past 5 years, you see that almost every year it keeps recurring. So it means that at some point the government, they say either they are ending SARS or they are redeploying, or they are different adjectives have been used over time to explain what the government has been trying to do with this controversial unit here. But let's look at how we can get it to the next level, though, and the new unit that we're going to see. How best can the citizens be involved in especially addressing matters of civil infractions by officers of the police?
Civil rights. Well, I think what needs to happen here is that you ought to have some kind of a civilian review board, because the oversight mechanisms are in existence. Let's just put it that way right now. there are no civilian oversights right now. Now you have what do you call it? The one that we have RPC, CPRC, Police Community Relations Committee, but that's not just materials for police within their beating zone. But there is no real oversight agencies out there. They have the Police Service Commission, but that's a government agency that is dealing with promotions of police personnel. So who is reviewing police performance and even police integrity issues, if I may ask? So that's really where the problem is. So we don't have any structures in place right now to review police performance or police attitudes, even how they are carrying out their jobs out there. Now, I know Nigerian civil civil society organizations, some like YAGA, when we have elections, they go out there and Clean Foundation, for example, even my own organization, ISEN, we go out and we review police performance in given circumstances. However, you must have an institutional mechanism for oversight or for overseeing police functions and police attitudes, because these are attitudes. These are when people start behaving. It takes a long time for it to get to where SARS is today in Nigeria. People, they start being rude, then they start pointing their guns at people. They start doing all kinds of stupid things. Then they start shooting people. Now that's where we are now. At that level, we are at the highest point of the violence continuum. And that is where we are coming in. So what we are saying is, when they are being rude, when they are even dressing badly, that's already a sign, like I told you from Pinion policing, metropolitan policing. When you dress badly, it already tells me you don't care, that you don't respect the members of the public that you serve. And so you're already saying something. From there, they now get to rudeness and start doing illegal detention, abusing rights and what have you. So there's a continuum there, and it takes time. So we need to get in tune, and we need to get the government to organize civilian oversight, some kind of civilian oversight in conjunction with police management that will look at what the police is doing. And then when there's a case of extrajudicial killing, it must receive the highest attention, or even illegal, deprivation of liberty. It must receive serious attention, because that's where it starts. When they start doing those things, nothing happens, then of course they go overboard.
All right, then talking about that violence continuum, we'll continue the conversation after this break. Interesting viewpoints expressed there by Ona Ekhomu, is the National President of the Association of Industrial Security and Safety Operators of Nigeria. Beyond Market continues after the break. Welcome back to Beyond Market. If you're just joining us, my guest is Ona Ekhomu, the National President of the Association of Industrial Security and Safety Operators of Nigeria. And we've been exploring the best and worst case scenarios, looking at the ENDSARS agitations happening across Nigeria at this time. Before we left off, Ona was just talking about the violence continuum, where we are at now, when we've seen peaceful protesters being shot at by police officers, and it speaks largely to the need for training of the police to, on civil engagement. And Ona, I'd like you to speak to this point, talking about the amount of training we need for the police officers to deal with different ways in which they can engage with the civilians.
Thank you very much, Ken. I think what we need to do is we have to have perhaps a re-evaluation of the police training curriculum, because the kind of bad behavior we have seen from police personnel out on the streets, not just SARS, even regular police, they do the same kind of things. The kind of behavior we have seen out there shows that there's a gap, there's a training gap, or even perhaps some kind of deficiency in the curriculum, the existing curriculum. So I think we need to probably address that in terms of tactics, police methods. We need to look at human relations, the interpersonal relations, like SARS people exhibited a lot of lose-lose mentality, which is negative strokes, and from personal relations. Now, what did that mean? That means I'll kill you, and the worst that will happen is I get killed. And so when somebody say that they are sick, they are mentally sick, and so that goes to another point there: psychological assessments. An assessment is before the fact, and then psychological evaluation. Evaluation is after the fact. Like right now, these SARS guys, we should be carrying out psychological evaluation of many of them, because many of them are really sick. Some are said to have PTSD. When you are fighting the kind of violent robbers we have in Nigeria, man, you can't be a sane guy after all those exchanges. So there must be a mechanism in place for treating them. They are not bad people. They are not wicked people. It's just that they are sick. And that's really what it is. And we are not treating their sickness. So we shouldn't expect them to behave any differently. That's if they do come out there and visit their violence on us. So I think that psychological evaluation, but then musketry, that is weapons handling and target practice, those should be emphasized, because what happens is we often have cases of people who are struck by stray bullets because the people are not able to shoot straight. Now, aside from musketry, combat practice, policemen need to be taken into settings where they are trained in combat. That's actual combat practice. They are given scenarios which they react, and to see, it's called SNS, shoot, no shoot. Are you going to shoot that? Because they will show somebody and the person doesn't have a weapon. Do you shoot if the person doesn't have a weapon, even if you are scared yourself? Well, you shouldn't shoot. That's really what it is. And or you see a lady carrying a baby, and the lady is not armed. Do you shoot? No. But what we have right now is, out of fright and out of not being conditioned, we call it battle inoculation. Not out of not getting battle inoculation, they just shoot at anything and say, oh my shit, I'm sorry, I didn't know. So that's not proper policing. We have to have policing that is trained and retrained again and again, and ready to do the right thing in the field.
Yeah,
because you are going to be confronted with situations which are going to test.
Yeah, interesting viewpoint you put forward that and as to how the officers need to be trained, especially that psychoanalysis that is definitely needed for them to be able to handle weapons, especially in the face of protesting civilians who are unarmed. But it speaks to largely, because when you look at this, it's quite an unprecedented arrangement we're seeing here with these agitations, and it's actually putting us in a new place, because usually when you hear of protests in Nigeria, it usually has a political coloring to it, or it has some civil group who are agitating for something. Usually a face of somebody to interface with is there. But this is young people from different walks of life in Nigeria who at different times have either a family member or a friend or somebody who they know of who have been either been brutalized by the police or whatever, and they are coming out now to state their claim. So in dealing or in engaging with people like this at this time, that level of intelligence that is highly needed from the security operatives to deal with this. And from your point of view as a security expert, I would like to get to know from you how best we can see the authorities engage to kind of quell these protests at a time like this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ken. I think what we are seeing is really novel. This goes back to like the 70s when the students in Nigerian universities used to protest and say Ali must go and all that. That's what I see replaying now in our society today, where there's not just one leader, or maybe like if you take the BBOG thing, you had just the leaders, you could just call them and say, don't do, and it will be over. But this one is diffused and is enabled by social media, because they are able to organize even without the police knowing what is happening, and they spring up everywhere. This morning, I was on my way to work, and I found out that the Lekki toll gate has been blocked. So I took a by road, and going to the by road, rowdy motorists have blocked the by road. Then the next thing, I get a call from my office saying that the whole of Balende has been taken over by protesters. So they say if I'm still close home, I should just turn back. And that's what I did. I turned back and came back home. So what I'm saying by that is this protest this time is diffused. It's in so many different places at once. And in fact, as I was coming back home, the toll gate by Leganza here on Lekki Ekpe Road was also getting blocked. It hasn't been totally blocked yet, getting blocked. So I was lucky to escape and get through and get back home. So having said that, I think the police agency needs to understand also what is happening. Because what we have is many flashpoints all at the same, and the purpose of that is to overwhelm the capability of the police to bring down, gain maximum efficiency in their protest, which is okay because Nigerians need to speak out. Now, one of the problems we have, and which is why this protest is so large, is that there is a lot of pent-up anger. There's a lot of pent-up emotions. People have not been given room to vent their frustrations. So this is not just about ENDSARS. It could well be about the entire police agency because there's a lot of frustration and anger against the police. Then it could also equally be about the government because there's a lot of hardship in the land today, and there's a lot of conception of things not going well for Nigerians. So having said that, I think we need to put all of that in context. But in terms of the question you asked, how should the police handle it? Well, I think we know from crowd management that every crowd has a leader, one way or the other. Whether the leader is not necessarily somebody who was chosen by some election, they just pop up. So the police needs a lot of intelligence assets now to monitor, that is go online and find out where they're going to mobilize, and then put a lot of plainclothes guys out there so that they can steer the course of the protests and then can talk down violence. Because I don't have any problem with protesting, but I have problem with violence. I have problem like right now blocking the road, not letting anyone through. You can protest quietly on the side of the street. We will see you, we will hear you, we will acknowledge you. But you don't need to block the road because I have legitimate business to do today, but I can't do it. And many other millions of Lagosians too are in the same boat. So I think that kind of a situation should be put in check by using plainclothes assets, using intelligence assets that can now go there and probably help direct. Of course, you also need uniformed policemen to come in there to prevent breakdown of law and order. And that's what needs to happen at this point in time. And then certainly the political elite must keep talking down this thing until...
I ask about this intelligent engagement strategy. Because when you look at the wider security facing Nigeria, yes, security challenges is not new to Nigeria. We've had quite a number running for years now, from Boko Haram to bandits we're seeing, or more recently. And I understand that you have a book and you talk about how Nigeria can engage at this front. I'd like you to speak more on that.
Thank you very much, Ken. Well, I just published a book, and it is captioned Boko Haram, Security Considerations and the Rise of an Insurgency. And what it does is it looks at the history of the Boko Haram problem, because one of the biggest problems we have is that many people in authority, many people in power, they don't understand the problem. So they are treating the symptoms, and the underlying cause and the underlying problem is still there. So the problem remains because they are trying to put out the flames, but the fire is burning, as it were. And that is why this crisis has persisted for 11 years now. And there is a lot of denial. There's a lot of perhaps not telling the entire truth, as it were, because most of the Northeast, particularly Borno State, is only in enclaves like Maiduguri and perhaps Bama that you have control of the forces. Most of the outlying area is under insurgent control. They set up checkpoints, they pick victims that they like, kidnap them, kill them, whatever. They charge taxes and so on and so forth. So that is why, like the attack you saw recently on the governor of Borno State, Mr. Zulum, whose backup convoy was attacked, and over 30 persons killed and vehicles scattered away, including even military assets. That's security assets like security vehicles, APC specifically. So APC, that is an armored personnel carrier. So having said that, I think this conflict we have in the northeast of Nigeria is not well understood. And the big problem is metastasizing. It is going abroad. It's going beyond the Northeast. And as is common for our authorities, we are not paying attention. We are not following the facts. We are not following the intelligence. And very soon we'll have issues like this where we are reacting after the genie has jumped out of the bottle. And it's really unfortunate. So we need to, I wrote the book and gave a lot of
to understand how this conflict and situation will play out.
Such that
quite a lot of work needs to be done. But thank you so much for your time, and definitely would love to engage more to understand how best we can tackle the rising insurgency challenges that we're seeing in Nigeria, as well as this new protests that are coming up with the ENDSARS movement in Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time. We always appreciate your comments on the show. I've been speaking to Ona Ekhomu. He's the National President of the Association of Industrial Security and Safety Operators of Nigeria. I'm afraid that's all the time that we have on Beyond Markets for today. For me and the team, enjoy the rest of your day.